there are different paths in the art world that an artist must choose to go down.
He sold 2 paintings for 25 grand, and then the art world ghosted him.
My first painting sold for like $1,700, and I was like, wow! I drove this thing like 200 miles to this guy's house on New Year's Eve. I hung it on his wall, he was having a party, and it was this great thing. Nothing more came from that, but it was just, I was so happy that someone wanted my art that I said, whatever you want, when you want it, I'll drive it and bang it. You got to do stuff like this. But then my next 2 paintings I sold, and I don't say this in any way to brag or in anything, but I made these beautiful paintings. They were just like where I was, and big, and they were like, one was like I think 14 feet, and one was like maybe 7 by 7, something like that. Big, they were too big.
That's
I sold
huge.
2 of them to the same person in Switzerland for $25,000 or $26,000 for both.
Success is loud until it isn't. This is the silence after the win.
And when I did that, I was like, I've got to make these and crank them a hand over. That was such an epic experience for me. Saatchi never did it. I thought that they would have been like, oh, Mr. Raven, we're going to stick you on the front page. You just keep producing, and bingo, we got a great. They never did, and I asked them over, and I said, come on. I said, this is great. We can do more. And
there's nothing more brutal than believing in something no one else sees.
I didn't sell for 9 months, and then it's just pain. It's because then I was creating, and I painted all these paintings, and nothing.
The art world isn't a meritocracy. It's a lottery.
Just jumping back in there from that epic sale, it was life transforming for me. I just couldn't. I wanted to sell every day. You can imagine, but then it didn't happen, and I couldn't make it, and that's a time when you're like hoping the system, the Saatchi Online would have taken you and put you on the front page and really banged the drum for you and said, this guy's got a product, he's got a skill with large format paintings, this is what he does, blah 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 blah. We want to really promote this. They didn't do it, and I didn't sell, like I said, maybe 6-9 months until I sold something. So I was very discouraged because I was so excited, and crash, bang, wallop, and then nothing. And it's been like that for really the last, 10 years I've been selling on there, or more than that now. It was 2014, so 12 years. And I've sold consistently. I've sold every year. I have not sold every month. I have sold every so many months, 6 months, but I have sold consistently yearly.
Passion is fuel, but fuel does not pay the rent. At least, not that kind of fuel.
I cannot function as a business person and an artist. I just cannot do it. Some people can. I cannot. So I always struggled with that until years later, I came to a point where I said to my wife, I said, listen, if I don't try and make it and give it a go as an artist, I may go to my grave and regret it for the rest of my life, because I'll never know. I can't, you can't say, I'll one day, or I can't do both. I just can't. I had to say, I got to stop doing this, and I've got to try this. And it was because I'm like an all or nothing type of personality, and it's a big risk. But at that time, my children were at an age where my wife was working again, because we had homeschooled our children for many years. So the kids were now, I think, 10, 12, 14. They were going to a school. And then my wife was working, so she had an income. So now was the chance to dive in and see what I could do.
That's interesting, because a lot of the things you're saying actually ring true with me, but in maybe a different way. So like when I was younger, I actually worked in a cabinet shop, and I'd often work in the spray room there, but I never saw any patterns that I could cut out of the floor there. Well, mostly we were working with stains and nothing colorful.
I was a bit more probably just like liberal with my paint, in the sense of just throwing it everywhere. But that's just part of the beast. I was using a lot of different colors, so yeah.
But one thing you did mention resonates with me too, because I actually was in the construction industry.
Okay.
I built houses for a living, and then last year I did what you're saying is I said, I need to do this because if I don't do it, I'm going to go crazy, you know. And it probably is about the same time you were, because my kids are around 10 and 13, and so, you know, a lot of what you're saying is like really touching me in my personal life too. It's like, wow, I can totally relate. And I told my wife that too. I was like, you know, I need to do this, because if I don't do this now, I'm going to get stuck doing this other thing forever, and eventually I'll be too old to make a transition into that. And you can't put it off. If it's a dream you got to do, you got to find a way to do it eventually.
You do.
So.
And that's very right. And it is an adventure. And see, the whole point, I think, is that you have to, you know, we can have a lot of ideas, a lot of, you know, delusional ideas, you know, because we live in America, we live in this country of great wealth, and we think of, that we know all these stories and artists can be successful, and you want to be successful, or you want to really make it big and make good money, and the potential is there, but the reality is very, very different. And I've learned a lot. I have suffered a lot as an artist. I've been in pain for years as an artist, and I think I learned not everything, but I learned enough to where I am now, which I'll share in a minute. My conclusions of the artistic journey stage that I'm at now is that there are different paths in the art world that an artist must choose to go down.
At some point, you stop waiting for permission.
I'm somebody that I knocked on doors at the beginning just out of curiosity, but I had such a sort of strange experience in my art journey in Spain when I started to try and sell my work. Again, being, I think, where they're just stubborn. And I think if we're going to really be an individual artist, we're going to be very stubborn and hard-headed. And I think that at the end makes you somebody very individualistic who will produce something unique, but that makes you also maybe someone very difficult. That not everybody is going to be, oh, this is wonderful. And the picture for me is I was in Spain when I first tried to, before coming here, when I tried to support myself the first time, I was creating these works that I was thrilled by. I was so excited. And this was this wax scratch through stuff. It was just like, it was so exciting for me. But no one else cared. And I got this permit to sell my stuff like on the streets. And I got this permit, and I'd like sit on the streets, and I'd lay my work out on the streets, and people just like thumb their nose at you. And you're like, what? You don't see it? And they don't. They couldn't care less. But there was a guy next to me, and this is so important for the artist, the economy of the art. There was a guy next to me, and this was like a tourist area, so he had all these like little craft type art things. They were like little pictures and they were small things. They were he had a brilliant setup, and he was selling his stuff hand over fist. And it was, tourists, and they were put them in their bag, and they spend $20 and $50, and he's selling, and I'm there like, no, not selling anything. I'm too big. They're not framed. It's just my raw art. I'm the artist. I'd not grown in that way, and this is also, I think, a great learning in the sense of we have to, and it's very hard for me. We have to reach a place where we say we have to accept that we have to make our work commercial, and there has to be a portion of our work that we have to make for people, not because it's ours, but it's because we know it's going to sell. And it's like this sort of selling of your soul to the that we have to do, and it's very hard, and I struggle with it till today. And I will, rather than do that, go back to my hammer and work as a contractor and make money, because I can make pretty good money as a contractor, and then be free to create my art, whether people buy it or sell it, or buy it or not, and to be free. That's I have had these struggles so intimately that I came to the point where, and just to follow on that thought of the two roads that we can choose, that gallery road, where you're knocking on galleries, you're submitting, you're getting hundreds of no, no, no. And I didn't even go to the hundreds. I get like 20 no's. I'm like, forget this. I said, I'm not going to wait around for you to give me a thumbs up. Or I know I'm an artist. I'm a painter. I'm going to create my art. You're not going to be the one to give me the thumb. But then it means that, all right, well, you're not going to hang in that gallery. So you better get your own system to try to sell and try to build a system. Or, so what I did before I did my gallery stint, where I've opened and run 3 of my own galleries now in the last 6 years in different parts of the country and in Spain.
Being an artist isn't romantic. It's a long conversation with doubt.
But what I found happening, and this again goes back to the struggle, Brent, is that the minute I got into a commitment and a rent on a space that was, in a high-end area, because, like I said, I've got a great space in upstate New York, but no one can see my work. It's no one. They have to travel hundreds of miles. In Marbella, where I was right in the center of where there are these people with massive amounts of disposable income, all you need to do is get your work in the right spot, and they're going to see it. And the volume of them, there's people going to buy it just because they're going to see your work and buy it. And that's reality for just on the buying and selling part. And that was the business model that I chose. I chose after refusing to go through this gallery process of I couldn't bear it. I said, I do not need you. I would rather build my own space and build my own white wall and hang my own painting and me look at it than have to suffer through your constant sort of this. It's just too random for me. I couldn't do it. So for your listener, the choice you have to make is what type of economic model are you going to choose to sell your work? And it does mean that you're going to suffer either way, but if you do it as a self-supporting business person, you have to be able to run a business parallel, and that became my big struggle. And so I've struggled for the last 5-6 years in running art businesses parallel to creating and not being free to create. So that's been a big struggle. I'm back in New York now. I've learned a lot in all these years. I've come to certain conclusions for me, which is in doing contracting work this winter in the home that my wife and I are living in right now. I will continue to do that woodworking and just make things beautiful with my hands with wood, whilst I'm a photographer as well. I satisfy my burning creativity with my camera on the short term. And I learned this about photography, which I found really helpful for me personally, is it's so less painful to be a photographer because you can take thousands of pictures and people like them or they don't. It's like getting stabbed with a small knife rather than painting this big, huge painting that you pour out your soul into, and you're like this in the mode, and you're the artist, and it's my art, and it's all, and then they're like, I can't take that pain. Is like just like torture. So photography was like little pain. It's more endurable. And yet today, like as I came in, I've been away from my studio a few days. I walked around, I saw my paintings in my studio, and I get so inspired. I'm like, oh, and it's freezing up here right now. So the majority of my art studio is frozen. I can't use it. All my paintings are frozen. I have to wait for it to thaw out in a month or two. But then spring in New York is so beautiful. It's so, I've been impacted by the seasons in America, in the Northeast. Most of my paintings were spring, summer. They were in fall. They were all inspired by the colors of the seasons. So I get excited even now talking to you. My mouth is literally watering as I am excited at the prospect of being inspired by a New York spring, which I haven't seen in quite a few years, and to see if I will produce a fresh body of work. It's very encouraging to me.
Every creative I know has lived some version of this story. If you want to keep going down this rabbit hole with me, check out this next video on the screen here. And if you want to also learn more about my books, check out my website at lightmindedarts.com, where you can enjoy my stories and my art, and I will see you in the next one.